Hi guys, my name is Ingrid Marsh and this is the Soulful Living Show, the place for bohemians, wild spirits and budding wild souls. And as you know, on the Soulful Living Show, I like to bring you women like me and you, ordinary women who are doing magnificent things to help you spread your wings. Anyway, today, my darlings, the topic is from mundane to magic. That's right. How can we take this mundane period of our lives, this quiet period of our lives, and come out of it with something magical? Now, the reason I brought Danni onto my show is because the first time I met her, she's a book publisher. I'm going to tell you more about her in a second. But the first time I met her, she came up with this really extraordinary statistic, which blew my mind. She was doing a talk and she asked how many people in the room had thought of doing a book, and virtually everyone put their hands up. And then she revealed that from the amount of people who actually think about writing a book, only about 5% actually do it. It's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea it was that low. So then I thought, you know what I mean? How can we take this time? How can we take this mundane time and actually write that book, actually put that pen to paper? So helping us to don our wings and to fly, Danni, who's a real expert, is going to help us out. So let me tell you a little bit more about Danielle Blechner. She's an award-winning entrepreneur. She's a founder of Conscious Dreams Publishing. She herself is a best-selling author and a book journey mentor. And she's really passionate about inspiring and empowering potential authors to transform their stories, their messages, and their powerful journeys into books of impact and influence. I spoil you guys, don't I? I tell you, I bring you the best. So she assists authors through their publishing process. She helps them to create their book, to publish it, and to market it with value and significance, she says. And over the last 18 months, here we go, listen to this, Conscious Dream Publishing has published over 60 books, and 16 of those have become bestsellers. Isn't that marvelous? So, Daniela, thank you so much for being with us today. And by the way, I'm going to put in this link, a link to her TikTok. Where she has the authors going from mundane to magic. So I'll make sure I
love that.
in that as well. Daniela, how are you, my lovely? Tell me about your story, how you got to opening Conscious Dream Publishing. What brought us here?
Right, okay. So, yes, there's a story behind it. I never initially decided I was going to become a publisher. I always knew that I was going to be an author. So from 4 years old, I was very much, I'm going to be an author, when you're asked what you want to do at school. So without question, that's what I wanted to do. They always said I was going to stay at home at 40, retire at 40, and just write books all day. But the truth is I wrote 7 books before my 36th birthday. So it's sort of similar, not quite.
Fantastic.
But in terms, thank you. So in terms of actually setting up Conscious Dreams Publishing, I can't really go into that without telling you the route to actually publish my book.
Yes,
so the first thing I did, my first book was called Mr. Wrong, was I read a book by Harry Bingham, which is called Getting Published. And I thought, okay, what does it tell you? Number one, and I followed it by route, write a query letter. So what's a query letter? A query letter is like a 1-page CV, for example. So it's who you are, what you've written, why you've written it, what your marketing plan is. Marketing plan? I'm an author, I don't know about that. They ask for so much more. And you send this to agents. So I sent this off, and normally you wait between 3 and 6 months, sent it off, and I stopped writing. And then I was literally waiting for a response. So all the responses came in, let's say all, maybe 2 or 3. I've still got the letters. It was like, very good, really love your writing, great humor, topical. However, we're looking for somebody with a following. Okay, or we're looking for somebody with a marketing plan. Because it's back in the days, agents, you didn't need a marketing plan. If you were a good author, they would, take you on. Right. But now they're asking for a lot more. So I did what they tell you not to do, which was to contact all the traditional publishers like HarperCollins, Penguin, knowing that they were going to reject me. So I thought, okay, let me buy some more time. Sent off a couple of chapters of my book, and waited again for about 3 to 6 months. And then again, one letter came in saying, this is really good, but we don't take unsolicited authors. And I knew that. And that's when I realized I wasn't waiting for permission. I was waiting for validation. So I wasn't waiting for a response. I was waiting for validation. I was waiting for permission. I was waiting for somebody to say, my story matters. I matter. This book is bloody brilliant, So it was that kind of realization that I was waiting for validation, as opposed to actually honoring these stories and still continue to write, because I stopped writing while I was waiting. by hook or by crook, I was setting up a company and I was going to do it myself. So I set up Conscious Streams Publishing. I extensively researched how to publish a book correctly and professionally, and publish my book. So I had no intention of setting up a publishing company. My background is teaching and mentoring, and I had lots of women coming to me and saying, you know, how did you manage to do this? You know, you've got really good press coverage, I got into the bestseller list, you know, it's a professionally published book. Can you help me to write my story, publish my story? And I was doing it, you know, as a labor of love. And then they started doing really well, and I was seeing all the opportunities they were getting, and I was thinking, hold on, this needs to be a business. You know, my passion is mentoring, teaching, literature and books and reading, and, you know, helping people to get their story out. So why don't I fuse the two together and create Conscious Streams Publishing? So that's really how it started, through just being passionate about publishing my own book, which also includes other women's stories and stories for men as well. But then naturally and organically, people wanting to learn, to know, you know, how do I get my story out? Because I feel like there's a lot of us whose stories are really powerful, everyday people overcoming and going through extraordinary things, people with powerful messages that aren't getting heard or aren't getting that commercial platform that they need.
Okay. And what about your own personal story? Because that sounds very fairy tale. As in,
really?
Yeah, it does. Now, I had this dream from when I was 4. So many people, it's fabulous, really. So many people have these dreams from when they were 4 and they forget about them, you know, halfway through. You had a dream from 4, you wanted to be an author, and you became really what you wanted. But were there any moments that were particularly low or challenging or difficult that you had to overcome?
In that journey? Wow, that's so weird. I've never seen it as like a necessarily a fairy tale. Still waiting for the other part of the fairy tale to you know, come into fruition. So yeah, so probably should have declared that when I was 4 as well.
Yeah.
Because at 4, I was always just resolute that it wasn't a question. And I always say the 2 most powerful words in the world are I am, because what you place after them becomes your reality. So when people ask me, it's like, I am going to be an author. It wasn't a question. So, but I also said that I was going to be a vet as well. I did work with kids, so, you know, slightly different, but still has the same rewards and challenges, I think. So what low points did I have? I would say, I mean, obviously I've faced a lot of rejection in terms of, you know, the validation story, trying to get an agent, trying to get, you know, the attention of traditional publishers. But it's about, okay, this route doesn't work for me. I'm still passionate about getting there, so I need to just take another route. So yeah, there might be low moments. I would say they're more challenging moments where you question, is this good enough? You question, am I able to publish this book? Because I had no idea how to do it. I just wanted to write. You question your own capability, and you also have, I think, because I've got, you know, a lot of my own personal stories. A lot of that book has come from pain. It came from an empowered place, but it's on the foundation of that book. It comes from, you know, pain. So it's, I'd say I wouldn't say low, I would say a challenging moment was being able to release that and like letting go of that fear and doubt, and that fear that someone's going to judge you, or the fear that someone's going to read your story and think, oh, she's had 10 years worth of dating disasters. What's wrong with her? Or, you know, the writing's not good enough, or whatever. You always have these, you know, fears and doubts, especially when you're releasing things that are really personal to you.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say the rejection was the low point, because I've still got the letters. That was my catalyst. That was my driving force to like, okay, I've got to make this work in another way.
So you mentioned that some of your books came from a place of pain. Was that your very first book? Did that come from a place of pain, or do they all come from a place of pain, most of them?
No. That was my first book, Mr. Wrong. In fact, the story before that, the book that I thought I would have published first, was I was writing a trilogy of young adult fiction books, fantasy books. But that wasn't the first book. The second one, you know, Mr. Wrong, which was my first book, the second one that I wrote, but the first one I published, yeah, they had the element of, you know, my own personal stories in there, but it had a lot of humor in there as well. My second book was 7 Shades of Love, which is more based on poetry. So I guess a lot of that, it's funny because a lot of things come from so many different emotions, joy, pain, you know, all of that, you know what I mean? So I would say in some of those poems, yeah, the foundation of some of them came from pain, but being empowered through that pain. My other books are the Book Journey Mentor's Guide to Self-Publishing. I've also, which is just based on publishing. Maybe you could say the pain of being rejected. I don't know, but yeah, no, it comes from all different.
It's interesting you say that things come from a place of pain, because that's all for me. That's always the best writing as well, when it comes from that particular part. But it's something that people still struggle with, that pain that still keeps them trapped, and they really struggle to put that on paper and put that into words and on paper. What would you say to someone like that?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, when you're writing a book, it's very different to journaling. So working out, where are you in that pain? Is that pain an old pain that you've in some way overcome, or whether you're writing from an empowered place? So when I wrote Mr. Wrong, I was writing from an empowered place. I was writing from past experience. But when I was very young, 17 to 18 to 19, I would say writing definitely saved me. In terms of some of the pain that I've gone through looking at those stages, was, rejection, feeling very lost, not having any guidance, being chucked out of college 3 times. Do you know what I mean? I had so much to offer and so much to give. I loved being creative, but I just didn't have an outlet to put it anywhere. I was very bored at college. I had a cool group of friends, little bit, probably doing things that I shouldn't have done at 17, 18, but I just felt very, very lost. And so the way that I dealt with a lot of that, and a lot of my beautiful writing and poetry has come through, journaling, through writing, through kind of channeling that anger and that pain through my writing. So I'd say to people who are writing from that place, first of all, identify why you're writing. Are you writing as a cathartic exercise for yourself? You're journaling to reflect and to get out some of that pain? Or are you writing because you're thinking about your audience and what message you can give to them and how you can help them? So is a focus on you and your pain, or is a focus on you having gone through your pain and now using that to help other people? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, you picked up on something there which I thought was really interesting. You're saying you've been kicked out of college 3 times. Now, for some people who've gone through the same, who've been booted out of college and kind of things, that the world, the media, the naysayers will put you to a heap really, and say, well, you're no good, you've been kicked out of college 3 times, but you've become a best-selling author from that. That's almost contrary to what the messages that people put out there. How did you not make that define you?
How did not make it define me? I think it's a part of my life. It's part of who I am. It's not who I am. It's an experience I went through. I would say what my turning point though after that was around 19. I did eventually go to college and passed. Didn't do as well as I definitely should have or would have thought I would have. But after that point, again, I had another year of just being completely lost. And at 20, I remember just thinking, do you know what? I have to do something. I have to come out of this country. I have to do something different. I feel like I want to, be of service somewhere. And so I was looking up rainforests, save the turtles, do this, do that. And I came across a place called Tanzania that I'd never heard of Tanzania before. So I ended up teaching English at school there. Absolutely loved it. They have such a thirst for knowledge, such a welcoming people. And it just made me think. I remember what some of the teachers there saying, you're a really good teacher. You should actually train to be a teacher in England. What do you do? And I was like, I'm just a receptionist at a leisure centre. They're like, okay, why don't you go to the university? I was like, it just doesn't interest me. It's not. So it did take another few years, but it set the seed that having a year there and just being completely independent and learning and seeing another culture and embracing myself and finding real purpose helped me to understand more of who I was and realize that the whole college and being lost was just part of my journey, but it wasn't my journey, and I was just finding my way.
For me, I see so much gold in that. you speak so normally. I just think, well, that's wonderful. Oh my gosh! And then you went off to Tanzania to teach, and to me, that's real wild spirit. Real wild spirit. You just refuse to be, clipped by the stereotypes that people put out there. You still. Yeah. You didn't let those things define you. I'm sure, like you said, they make you, go on a downer. But you packed your bags and you flew. You went out, and the opportunities came from that. So I don't know. I mean, I just see gold in that. So
thank you.
Well done. So we talked about, as I said in my intro, that only 5% of. Give me the actual statistic of how many people believe they have a book inside of them.
So 84% of people want to publish a book. Out of that 84, only 5% go on to fulfill that dream. Can you believe it?
Yeah. But I'm not, I'm 3/4 of the way through mine. It's been that.
Come on, Ingrid, don't be that. Don't be that.
79%. I'll finish, and I know you're going to help me and others to do. So yeah, I mean, why so little? Why do you think that is? I know there's fear always comes up, but what's the sticking point in this particular arena?
Okay, so the 3 things that hold people back from publishing their book. Number 1 is lack of knowledge. I always hear that. So for example, if you're wanting to climb a mountain, it's like publishing the book and distributing the book is at the top, but the bottom is having this idea. And sometimes like that gap between having the idea and actually publishing the book seems so huge that people might start and then they just become disheartened because they don't understand how they're going to get to the top. So they think, I'm not even going to invest my time because it seems too big. You know, so we help people to break down the steps of publishing with mentoring and our online courses as well, so they start to understand the process of publishing, or hire a book journey mentor like myself. The second one is people, yeah, there you go. The second one people say is lack of time. Now, I think there's a difference between how you use time and how you spend time. So we help people to look at how they manage their time. So we get them to write down what they're doing on the hour, every hour, from 5 in the morning till 1 at night, and they always find those pockets of time. I remember speaking to somebody who was a mother, said 2 children, 1 was a newborn, 2 jobs, and she still managed to write and publish her book now. I have when she told me how she was doing it, she said she had a notepad down her bra and she'd pull it out after work when she was traveling home, start jotting things down because she was so passionate about doing it. And so I was working 2 jobs at the time, 6 days a week, 1 as a full-time teacher. And so when I heard that, I thought, she really spurred me on. I have no excuse to not write my book. Third one is lack of money. And obviously you need to finance your book, you know, paying for the editing, typesetting, designs. We help people to crowdfund. I raised over £1,100 to publish and launch my book. I've helped over 6 authors to raise £2,000, up to £2,000 to launch and publish their book as well. So I have smashed every single one of those reasons as to why you should publish your book. Those limitations, gone, back. But really, I think it comes down to a lot of people to, you know, fear and doubt, lack of fear in their capabilities, fear of judgment, fear of being criticised, fear of being exposed, all of these things that, you know, I think you need to overcome.
And I think that's an important point as well, actually. You said, so there's something you mentioned like this there. And so one of the questions I want to ask is that getting a fair critique of your work, because there's 2 problems here, isn't there? It could be absolutely brilliant and you don't know it. Or maybe it does need some help and you don't know it. And we know what the mind is like. It will tell us all kinds of nonsense, won't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my fear is that you can give it to a friend who has maybe some hidden issue with you. Do you know what I mean? And says, oh, it's not that good. Do you know what I mean? Bit of envy kicks off. I wanted to write a book myself, never got around to it, bit a bit envious. And they knock it. And all it takes is one little knock. You can go tumbling down. Do you know what I mean? Equally, it might need some work. Do you know what I mean, my darling? It may need a bit of more of a deeper thought process. How can I go about getting like true critique on their work?
True critique. Good question. So obviously when people submit, we're always very honest. We don't just publish anything. It's got to be obviously in alignment. We did have a book writing coach who would refer people to, or we do know book writing coach who can do that. So they might look at the manuscript and they'll break it down. So it's very formal, you know. If it's fiction, you know, do the characters work? You know, what works well? How can they be improved? What about the language, the style of language? Is it correct? Let's look at the sequencing. Let's look at the plot. Let's look at the message. Is the message clear? So it kind of breaks it down. Also, then it looks at, you know, spelling, punctuation, grammar. How does it flow? So it looks at those different aspects, and it just gives a professional critique or analysis on each one. There are also companies like Cornerstones is pretty good as well. They do formal, they do book proposals, they do critiques of manuscripts. So I think it's important to get, you know, professional feedback. But I also think, like you said, you know, giving it to a friend, you know what I mean? Giving it to a friend who's got some sort of issue. You want to have your beta readers, and you also want to have like I always say to my authors, have a strategic set of questions. So if you want to know if your character is likable, or if your character's flaw is do you relate to the character's flaw, or do you understand the message? Write out focus questions for them to answer, and get a range of different people. Get people, first of all, if your book's for young adults, don't give it to, you know, your friend who hates fantasy. Give it to the person who that book is for. Give it to a young child. Give it to a 14-year-old. They will critique. They'll be honest with you, you know. Then find a range of people, you know, a member of your family if you want, a friend, a colleague, and then ask 2 strangers, because they don't have any reason to hidden agenda, that they should be honest, and give them focused questions that help you to know whether your message is coming across, that your story works. Also, you know, without those questions, you could give it to a good friend, because your friend likes you, be like, yeah, you spent all this time writing a book, and it's like, oh, what did you think? Oh yeah, it's good. That doesn't help. Yeah. That's lovely, but what does that mean? You know what I mean? Those packet of crisps I had was good 10 minutes ago. You know, so strategic, clear, and professional guidance.
And proper questions, strategic, proper questions. Because that's as well as that human nature. You know, human nature really struggles with critique, don't they? I mean, how do you get your authors to manage that? Because I know that, you know, sometimes people ask me things like, crikey, how do I go about telling them this? And there's a process that you go through to give critique. But people really struggle with it. They see it as a personal attack on them. That's not a route of becoming a great author, though, is it? I mean, what do you think about
time for that? If we've got to step away from what, you know, precious. You know, I think like we want to take on authors who really care about their reader, and care about, is my message coming across? Is it clear? Am I connecting to that person who I want to read my book? And so if that is what their goal and their intention is, then, and it's not about criticism, it's about, okay, how can we make it better? We're all working towards a common goal of making things better. It's like, as teachers, we get observed relentlessly. Not anymore. But, you know, that the purpose of that is for us to always upskill, and to always, you know, have a better practice, and to always make sure that we're reaching the children and creating engaging lessons. So it's the same with authors, or anything that you're doing. You always should be looking to improve.
Cool.
So I don't think there's room, you know, for taking things personally.
Personal. And another thing I wanted to run with you. I remember once being on a creative writing course, and even from that, you know, doing public speaking training and that kind of thing, I realised how many people, almost the bulk, and especially us Brits, you know, stiff upper lip type thing, really struggle with vulnerability. And sometimes I have read work and I thought it was good, but I could see in parts that this person was almost still trying to conform to what would make me accepted, what would make people want to listen to me, what do they want to hear me say. And there was times I've read books and I remember thinking to myself, this doesn't feel real. And I remember particularly once when I was on a creative writing course many years ago, an example of this was that there was a guy who was writing about being in prison. Now I could tell, not so I've been in prison myself because I hadn't, that he hadn't been in prison, actually. He was writing from the stereotype of what he felt life would be like in prison from perhaps a television programme. And I just remember at the time thinking, I couldn't directly say that, well, you haven't. I just remember thinking, I don't feel it. But I remember the tutor picking it up and saying, you've written it from watching a television. You haven't been there. Do you know what I mean? This is not coming from a place of heart.
Yeah.
And you can almost see it. Sometimes I've read books, I just think, you know, it's good, but you've not come from here. Have you come across this, and do you have any advice around that?
I haven't come across that because the kind of stories that we publish, the kind of books that we publish are self-development books, a lot of personal stories. We do some children's fiction, and we started to do sci-fi, which I'm starting to love now, actually. And poetry books. They're the main books that we publish. So whenever I have, you know, I offer free 30-minute consultations. 90% of the time, it's someone's personal story. They want to share something. They want to talk about something they've overcome. So it's always come from an authentic place. And the kind of people that we're looking for are people who want to write to share something so that they can, help and uplift other people, but share something that's true and real to them. So I haven't come across anyone who's tried to pass off a personal story of their own life, like being in jail and they have no idea what they're talking about. That's quite funny. But no.
Yeah, so I guess what you mean, it's a different style. It's different, one's fiction, one's biography, and that kind of thing. So no, I hear you.
But I think you're right, though. It is important, though, isn't it? Because you can feel and you can tell when something's not real or it's not authentic. It doesn't hit you there, and then you start to mistrust the person who's produced whatever it is they produced.
It's not, and even like in lots of areas that can happen. It's like there's just something different. It just feels different when you can feel that hard. Well, if we're talking about books and writing, we've got to talk about the J.K. Rowling story, because everyone knows that one. Proper badass. Don't know about J.K. Rowling. Got rejected. I'm sure Daniela can give me the actual statistics. What felt like a zillion of times. Got rejected. Eventually, I believe her publisher or the person who recognised it as great gave it to his daughter. The daughter, this is bloody brilliant, and she's gone on to make millions. But my darling, where does one get that? I mean, you've had that. We're just like rejection letter or going to that. Where do you get that kind of resilience from to keep going? Like, who has that?
You just keep going. But you're right. I love the J.K. Rowling story. And the reason why the daughter actually picked it out of the slush pile, which are the rejections, is because she had a really interesting coloured binding on it. And so she picked it out because it looked pretty. So it's about you being unique. And like you say,
I know that actually. So I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. So how do I have the resilience to keep going? I don't know. I think that, and I would say to authors, is always connect with your why. So my why for my book was I'm passionate about inspiring, uniting, and empowering women, giving us a platform to share our stories where we can laugh at our dating disasters, but learn and grow through them, but also to self-discover. So what limiting belief systems do we have about love, relationships, and even ourselves that are holding us back? And so that why became more important than me, became more important than, I've been rejected, or, can't remember the name of the agent, Cowley, I think. Cowley or HarperCollins has rejected me. If I know these stories are of worth, and I know they are, because I've had people, connect with me afterwards and say, this person's story really helped me to get out of an abusive relationship. This person's story helped me to, evaluate my self-worth. I'm growing in my communication in my relationship, or I've learned, I'm learning to let go and forgive, which is a huge part of the book as well. Forgiveness, self-discovery. There's a lot of self-reflection exercises in there as well. So it's really just believing in what you've produced. It's not about looking for permission. It's not about looking for validation. If you know in your heart that what you're writing is of worth and of value, and you know that person over there is going to gain something from it positively, then there's no question, no one's here to give us permission. By hook or by crook, you've got to do it yourself. Yes, it's good to get feedback. Yes, it's good to to have acceptance from major companies. That's brilliant. I would never turn down unless I had a better deal. If HarperCollins came to me and said, we'd love to give you a 3-book deal for such and such book, I'd never say, oh no, I can't do that because I can do it myself now. That's brilliant. But if you know what you've got to produce is good enough, there's no real excuse really, apart from fear, which really isn't where you want to be standing.
Indeed, and we just need a bit of courage, don't we, to overcome that. I always say to people, the fear doesn't go, my love, we need some courage.
Exactly. Feel the fear, just do it anyway.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you this question, which I'm a little bit nervous about asking it.
You're making me nervous now.
No, it's not. I'm nervous because of the message that I might put out there by putting this question out there. And I'm going to answer the question and tell you why I'm nervous about it. Because I want to. You've had some, great bestsellers in your repertoire. One of those people I know very well, and her book was absolutely fantastic. So we have the bestsellers. But the reason I'm nervous about asking it is because I always feel that what prevents people from expressing themselves in any kind of art form, maybe poetry, writing a book, and all the rest of it, is that unless you become big straight away, it's deemed as not worth it. And I know that for many great artists, people who have made it big, there was much stuff that got rejected first. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
so much shit first before you get to the diamond. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm nervous about. Just what makes you a bestseller? Because I don't want to make that the be all and end all, because it's all like a process.
Right.
It's the only reason I was nervous about asking it.
Yeah.
But have you found like a common thread between those bestsellers? Was there something that you can say, you know what, Ingrid, all 16 of those people had
That's a great question, actually. Just picking up on one part that you said, you know, people not wanting to or feeling fearful about putting something into something without having that guarantee that it's going to fly. You know, Beatrix Potter is another great example. She, number one, she was a woman, so would have had to go by a male name. She actually self-published her book. Amazing. And she sold probably, I think, around 40. Okay. It wasn't until she died that she sold a 250 million, has a house built in the, you know, the Beatrice Potter house, I think, somewhere, because I remember visiting there when I was young. You know, success can come, I mean, I don't say success can come after we die, but I mean, how do you, that's not the message I want to give, but, you know,
it's going to be great.
Don't worry, just push it out now. What I'm saying is, like, how do you define success? Because she may have seen it as, okay, this hasn't been successful. She might have seen it as, wow, this is hugely successful because, number one, I've got it published myself. Number two, 40 people have bought it. And that would have been, you know, really unheard of as a woman at that time. So, but I guess picking up on the bestseller thing as well, I don't always think it's about being necessarily a bestseller is what gives you the success. What gives you the success is your sales, because I don't want to kind of rip the lid off. There's a lot of amazing bestsellers out there, Dilys being one of them, as you know. But there are some people who have given themselves the label of bestseller because they're bestseller for, let's say, an hour on Amazon or whatever, and maybe they might have sold 50 books in comparison to others in that category at that time. It doesn't mean that you are an amazingly successful author. What to me makes an amazingly successful author is, number one, having a really well written book, one that looks polished and looks professional, and three, don't know, I was counting, but on top of that, you know, your sales. How many of you could not be a bestseller and have sold, you know, thousands of copies of your book? You know what I mean? But it's about, who have you affected? Yeah. How are you building your name? Are you getting good clients? If you're writing from a business perspective, are you getting good clients to your book? What has been the feedback on your book? It's all about the feedback, and it's all about the sales, I would say.
Yeah. And for me, I think to myself, God, if I just completed the bloody thing, I'm successful.
Yeah. Exactly. Get done.
I'm a bloody best something. Completed it.
Yes.
Thank you for that, my darling. So you do these wonderful before I ask you that, let's just get some like 3 kick-ass badass tips from you. This is
3 badass kick-ass tips. Okay, number 1.
On 3.
I would say, before you write, I'm going to give it to you. Before you write, know what your why is. Why are you writing that book?
I love that, by the way. Know your why. I love that.
Yes, know your why.
Somewhere in my room.
Yes, put it there. There's a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
He's like Sinek's work.
You know him? Yes.
Start with your why, Ingrid.
Yeah, start with your why. There you go. Why are you writing that book?
I didn't think of it with book publishing.
Yeah. There you go. He says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Why are you writing this book? Who are you as a person? What's your story?
I forgot about it. So great reminder, darling. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No worries. I feel like we're doing a consultation already. Like,
you know I've got on here, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Number 1, know your why. Why are you writing the book? You know, who, and secondly, who are you trying to connect to? Be really clear in your audience, because a lot of the times I do my consultations, I say, who's your book for? Who's your target audience? Everyone. Your book is never for everyone, because when you're saying everyone, you're doing your core audience a huge disservice. You know, how you might speak with, you know, a 65-year-old would be completely different to a millennial or to a 17-year-old, for example. You know, the language, the tone, the challenges that we're facing are different. The things that we've gone through are different. So how are you going to adjust your language? What kind of colours you're going to use to appeal? Yeah. So be really clear about your audience. And then I get, you know, women. It's like, okay, what sort of women, you know, not that we're trying to solve a problem, but, you know, what challenges are they facing? What's their belief system? What do they read? Where do they go? What are they interested in? You know, what's their background? So what's their age group? So the clearer you can be about your audience, the more that's going to shine through in your book, and you're going to connect. Because it's all about connecting. So if you're really clear about your why and your audience, you're connecting to that one person who's reading your book. Really important. The third one would be just really think about your bigger vision. What really I find really disheartening when I speak to people who've already published in another way. They've said, you know, I've published 3 books already. And it's like, okay, how have the books done? Oh, not very well. Well, why not? Well, they're just sitting on Amazon. It's like, okay, why? You know, or why have you not had any sales? I haven't done an event. I haven't told anyone about it. Might have told friends and family, and I haven't promoted it. The book is not going to promote itself. It's like having a baby. You've got to feed it. You've got to breastfeed it. I would say for the first 2 years of its life, do what you want. But, you know, definitely for the first year of its life, it's so important to nurture that book. So I'm getting passionate now because it really upsets me when I hear about, you know, people publishing books and it's like, it's just left there. It's like, I've done the hard work now. No, you haven't. This is where it starts, you know. What speaking engagements can you get? Who can you connect with? You know, what joint ventures can you create? What organizations can you connect with to you know, maybe sponsor some events that you're doing? Who can you know, do a webinar with talking about topics of your book? Can you do Facebook Live? Can you do a book trailer? You know, what press can you get? Who can you contact? You know, what retailers can you get your book into? It's really difficult to do that, but it is more than possible. Do everything you possibly can to get your book out there and to nurture its life. Do not waste it. Those are my 3.
I'm loving your vibe. I'm loving your vibe. I'm so passionate about this.
yeah, I just got on it now. It's like, no, we're going to do something with this.
I love that, Squelchers. I love it. And you know what's interesting for me? How similar it sounds to like a business. Do you know what I mean? Know your what? Do you know what I mean? You're going to make that connection.
Yeah.
Your target audience. So many people think like, you know, I do aromatherapy candles, all the rest of it to help people reach their wild side, and but so many people just sell candles. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They haven't thought of their target audience. Who's your customer? They just think they're selling. No. You're going to say target. I didn't realize that book publishing was exactly the same. Or they're just going to sell to everyone. Well, no, you can't.
You can't.
You know what I mean? Got to target. You know, channel your target audience and promotion. So many people create a website. I think people are just going to come flood into the damn thing.
I know. It's really frustrating. They're like, what do you mean I've got to promote it? Of course you do. I'm not on social media. How do I? Come on, right? You can't just let it die. You can't.
And it's a very, you know, especially now, such a noisy marketplace out there at the moment. So to get heard, it really takes some welly, doesn't it? You know.
Yeah.
I think they say now our attention span is less than a goldfish, which is, I think back in the days, like 6 seconds. Even though.
Sorry, what was it? I lost attention.
She's also a comedian, by the way.
Well,
Danni. You need to follow her on Facebook. She's incredibly funny, by the way. That's another part. She's not letting that out so much, but she's incredibly funny. But yeah, those 3 areas, and I think that's thank you for that, my darling. Like I said, I didn't realise it was very much like it's a business. That's what I say. Attention span. Lost my thought. Our attention span is it's less than a goldfish. So even today, you know, sometimes you can have like 14 tabs up. Do you know what I mean? 14 tabs. And before you know it, my darling, you've started one job, and next thing I'm in bloody Africa. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what am I doing over here? How did I end up here?
on your computer.
For real.
I know. No, seriously. That's why video is really good. You know, interviews, quick information. People don't want to have to read long posts all the time. People, of course, they still want to read, but they don't want to read long streams of posts, and they don't want to see just links to your book. You know, you think about creative things you can do. Quick videos. That's why we do book trailers and things like that. Interviews as well. Really good.
Wonderful. So my darling, this book course, which just sounds incredibly exciting. When is your next one? How do we subscribe? How do we get in touch with? How do we do your, is it called, remind me, tell us about it.
The Power of Your Story. So the Power of Your Story was an in-person workshop. People have been saying for ages, can you do something online because I can't make it? Can you do? And I've just said no. You know, I've said yes, but really I haven't done it because I didn't have a clue how to use Zoom. I didn't have a clue how to do it. It just seemed way too. It's like that mountain. I want to do it, but I don't know how to do it, so I didn't do it. And obviously with this lockdown now, I was forced to do it because I had 10 women enroll, so I couldn't really, So it's called The Power of Your Story. It's a 6-week course, or if you're doing it online, it's 3 full days. So there's 6 modules. The first session looks at your why, your message, your audience. There's some of the things we talked about, your vision. You get to pitch your book. The second session is all about how to structure your book. We've got a third session, which is all about, we've got guest speakers. So the Hattie Phillip is her name. She's awesome. She's a PR expert. So she runs through how to get your book in the press. Then we have another session with the Transformational coach, who's one of our authors, Gosha Gorna. She runs a workshop on how to release your fear and transform it into brilliance. We create vision boards. We also look at how to create a vision for your book. Then we have Simone Vincenze, who runs a workshop on how to monetize your story and expertise. So it's not just about, publishing the book. It's like, what other streams of revenue? Because you want to make money from your book. Can you create from your book? So can you do an online course? Can you do speaking engagements? How can you sell your book? So it looks at the business side of it as well. I'm not sure when the next one's going to be, but you will definitely connect with me, and I will let you know. We've just finished the last one, and we've moved on to the 90-day accountability mentoring. So it's just keeping the ladies accountable to what they said they were going to do in the course. So that's like the post-course stage, because it's so easy to do a course, isn't it? And then, it's, oh, I've done it now, I'm so inspired, and you feel good. And then, after a week, you're like, huh? What course? And you've got no one to be accountable to.
Yeah, accountability. I'm so glad you've got that in there as well. You really have thought of everything, haven't you?
I've done my best.
Because you're right. I know when just from transformations I've done, like I did this running transformation over 30 days, blah blah, and I was posting it every day on Facebook, and believe me, halfway through I didn't want to go on. I was done. I would have quit. Do you know what I mean? And so because I had that accountability, it kept me going.
Yeah.
Whereas at the moment, I'm doing an online course, online qualification. There's no accountability. And my lovely, this is going to take me 1 whole year. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm telling.
I'm on it. And another time, it's like, oh, here we go. So, yeah, I'm really pleased you have all that in there as well. So you really can take us, my lovely Danielle Blechner, from mundane to magic. Please, my lovely, will you share your website address and contact details with us and how we can get in contact with you?
Yes, of course. My website is www.consciousdreamspublishing.com. Email address is info@consciousdreamspublishing.com. I'm on Instagram as consciousdreamspublishing.com and Facebook. I think they're the main ones. Yeah.
Great stuff. I'll also put links to that in my post as well. Danni, you have been absolutely wonderful. I'm sure you've just woken up the whole world with your enthusiasm and your love.